Happy Palm Sunday, everybody. The day we celebrate the kickoff to Christianity's centerpiece event, a blood sacrifice. Strip away the stained glass and the hymns, and what you're actually looking at is an omnipotent God who decided he couldn't forgive humanity for breaking the rules he made up arbitrarily unless something innocent bled and died first, which is the same sympathetic magic every ancient culture practiced, just with better production value. Hebrews 9:22 says the quiet part out loud. Without the shedding of blood, there is no forgiveness of sins. That's not a plan of salvation. That's a hostage negotiation where God is both the kidnapper and the ransom. And the sacrifice didn't even work. Sin didn't stop. Suffering didn't stop. And most humans who ever lived are still supposedly hellbound because they picked the wrong God out of a lineup or were born in the wrong century. And let's be honest about what Jesus actually sacrificed here. A bad weekend with a guaranteed resurrection to partially fix a problem that he himself created, using a mechanism borrowed from Levitical goat slaughter rituals. So either God chose to require blood when he could just have forgiven people, making the crucifixion cosmic sadism, or he's bound by rules he can't override and isn't actually omnipotent, or the whole framework is ancient blood magic retrofitted onto first century theology, which is the most parsimonious explanation by a mile. Take your pick. And if you disagree with my interpretation of this Holy Week, then call in because the show starts now. What's up, heathens? How y'all doing this week? I am here with Jim Barrows. What's up there, Jim? How are you doing?
Doing pretty good for a Rosie Palmer and her 5 friends Sunday. Oh, wait,
yes.
No, that's just Palm Sunday. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Today is March 29th, 2026. I am the Godless Engineer. And just letting you guys know that to cover everything here at the beginning, the Atheist Experience is a product of the Atheist Community of Austin, a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to the promotion of atheism, critical thinking, secular humanism, and the separation of religion and government. So we are streaming tonight. So big shout out to our viewers on TikTok and on YouTube mobile. If you are watching us on TikTok tonight and you'd like to talk to us, then request to join and we'll bring you up on stage to make sure, to make sure that you are over 18 years of age before doing so. So with that said, Jim, what do you got planned for this holiest of weeks?
Well, I'm doing this show now and then I'm doing Skeptic Haven after. And so other than that, that's about it. I'm not planning on much of it. I mean, it's just another week. I don't know what makes it holy. It's not like we're missing a Wednesday and there's a hole in the week, right?
Yeah. Honestly, I find that the whole sacrificial week of Jesus being like a big production number, I think is a little weird considering, the fact that it's celebrating the sacrificing of one person to cover for all the sins of everybody else, which actually doesn't accomplish anything, kind of like what my intro was saying. It's not actually accomplishing anything. It's just, it's just basically God sacrificing himself in order to make people feel guilty for something. I mean, I'm really not even sure.
Yeah, and it doesn't even make any sense, right? Can you imagine somebody on trial for murder gets convicted, sent to the death chair, and the person's father says, "Oh, no, let me go, let me take it for my son." And I don't think anybody would think that was justice. But because it involves some guy named Jesus Christ, all of a sudden that's justice or mercy or whatever you want to call it. If you wouldn't accept it of a human doing it, why is it all of a sudden okay for a God to do it? Why is it okay for God to sacrifice himself to himself? If you believe in the triumvirate God, right? It is that. We can't make it sound any sillier than it already does. So can't really accuse us of that. But I don't get it. It doesn't make any sense. Why is substitutional atonement considered a valid thing to do when we don't accept it anywhere else, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's rather curious how they make that calculus work. And I honestly, when I was a Christian, I really didn't give it more than 2 seconds of thought for it. Right, like I was just told Jesus died for you, so you should definitely feel guilty for that.
Yeah, that's some serious guilting too, right?
Yeah.
I went through 9 hours of labor to birth you, and I paid for every hospital visit and doctor's appointment and your braces, and so that kind of guilting, I don't think we consider good parenting, and yet we accept it from God. This type of guilt tripping and shaming. So
yeah, I know, right? So we do have somebody over there on TikTok that's wanting to get up here. So I'm going to go ahead and get them on up in the box here. Let's see if I believe it's Tony. Let's see if Tony's going to connect. If you are on TikTok, make sure you're tippy-tapping on that screen there. Make sure you're sharing out the live to all of your friends, especially people that you think will disagree with us. And make sure you're commenting. Commenting sends positive signals on all the platforms in order to get the stream out there so that we get some really good callers up in here. I'm not sure. I don't think Tony's actually gonna connect. I think Tony's a ghost request there.
Bummer.
We do have the phone. Yeah, I know. Those fucking ghosts. We do have all the lines open over there on Call-In Studio. If you want to call in, it's 512-991-9242. You can ask both Jim and I about this whole Palm Sunday week. Like, what's going on with that? Yep, it looks like Tony was a ghost. Ghost Tony.
The soul was willing, but the body was not.
Yeah, exactly.
Can we make it any worse for the poor guy? He probably just had technical issues, and here we are making jokes about him. Oh, well.
Well, so the whole ghost thing, people go away from the app, they request up, they forget and everything, and so it's just sort of there. So, yeah, it's definitely not Tony's fault. That's definitely not what I meant. It's whatever kind of weird thing that the TikTok app has going on over there.
That causes those stuff, really?
Yeah.
Don't say.
So, Jim, I know that we're pretty much aligned on the whole mythicist sort of thing about Jesus not existing and everything. And I feel like most atheists out there probably agree with the gospel version of Jesus not ever being a real historical figure. But I'm kind of curious, as far as this week goes, the Holy Week, the entrance into Jerusalem, and him getting pinned up on the cross and everything like that. Where do you think that kind of comes from? Like, what do you think? I guess maybe got the gospel, like Paul and the other people, to like invent such an extravagant sort of deal for Jesus.
Well, don't we mostly get that from John, who and John's kind of that whole Jesus superhero thing, right? My take on Matthew and Mark is Jesus as kind of a regular guy. We get miracles out of him. Granted, none of those miracles are anything that a stage magician can't do. But we do get some miracles and all of that, but we don't see anything getting set. We don't see, to my mind anyway, as much of the Jesus as sacrificial lamb except from John. And so I think that's the where we get it all from, right? Is he's the sacrifice and therefore part of a festival or a celebration of the sacrifice, which seems really, really weird when we're sacrificing a human and human sacrifice.
Yeah.
But I think, I don't know how much of it, I don't think any of it actually comes from Paul. I think it's all John. I mean, a lot of the supernatural Jesus Christ badass thing comes from John, to my mind.
Yeah. Yeah, well, John has the more explicit connection to the Yom Kippur ritual, and everything. So, yeah, John definitely is very very tied into that. Let's see, we do have somebody else over there on the TikTok. Just letting everybody know, if you're watching on TikTok and you want to talk to us, just go on ahead, request up. We are only doing one person at a time, though.
We also have someone on. We have a caller too.
Yeah, we got someone screening in over there, but I'm not sure if Tiny Rick over there on TikTok is going to be a friendly or op, but let's see. We've got Tiny Rick coming up, maybe. Yep, there's Tiny Rick. Hi there, Tiny Rick. Are you over 18? I see him flash. Oh, are you there, Tiny?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep, I got you. Are you over 18?
All right. Yes, I'm 39. Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
What are your pronouns, by the way?
He, him.
Okay. Right. Are you opposition or are you friendly?
Absolutely not. No, I'm a huge fan. I basically just wanted to say hi because no one else was calling in. And just a quick question. Maybe you can give your perspective, because during the announcements, you always say that the atheist community is about secular humanism and the separation of church and government, and I can't put it together right now. But it's four things, I think. Do you guys have like one in mind that you think is kind of on top, as it were, as in like the others follow from that? Because
I would. Yeah, so I would say the separation of religion and government is would probably be like a top priority, but I think feeding from that are the other things: the secular humanism, critical thinking, atheism. Atheism as far as like the secular aspect of atheism, I guess. I don't know. What's your opinion there, Jim?
I think first we need to be clear that we're speaking. That is coming from the atheist community of Austin, which is an organization, a club, essentially in Austin, Texas. Who puts these shows on. So we're not trying to speak for all atheists. I don't know. I hope you weren't taking that. But yeah, I think that the secular humanism and everything kind of flows really from those ideas, to include separation of religion and government, comes from that. But yeah, I think that as a focus right now, given how much Christian nationalism has the ear of the government at the moment, that is something that we need to be much more focused on than maybe we have been.
Absolutely. That seems to be the most important thing at the moment.
Yeah, and then Kelly over there on TikTok says, "Can I volunteer?" And yes, you can. You can volunteer. There are a lot of ways in which you can volunteer, and you can email volunteer@atheist-community.org, and you can get involved. You can. We're always looking for people interested in being part of our productions. We're looking for crew members. You can be a guest on one of our shows, or even eventually become a host. So you just email volunteer@atheist-community.org, and you can help us out.
All right. And since you have a caller,
and if you're in the Austin area,
I'm gonna head out and say thank you, guys. Have a good evening.
All right. Thank you, Tiny Rick. I hope you have a good one.
Yeah, I think sometimes people forget that we are put on by an organization that exists in Austin. When we say the atheist community of Austin, and so it's important, I think, to make sure we make that distinction when someone's talking about the things the ACA does or believes or is currently supporting. So things like, atheists helping the homeless, there's a lot of things. And the ACA also supports other atheist organizations as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we normally have, we take our first call and then we do some other announcements. And while we're still getting our actual call-in studio call queued up here. We do want to encourage people to like the videos on all of the platforms where we're streaming today, TikTok, YouTube, all of that good stuff. Make sure you're tippy tapping on that screen over there on TikTok, sharing out the stream on all of the different locations, and making sure that you're helping us produce the best show, because y'all are part of the show by getting this video out there to everybody. Enable notifications. Make sure you're commenting, because that's going to help too. Another way to support us is by sending in super chats. We will read as many as we can on the stream today. So if you want to get any kind of super chats in, definitely send those super chats in, and we will be addressing those on occasion in between calls, and at the end of the call we will be addressing any that we get in. If you're in the Austin area, you can follow the atheist community of Austin on Meetup to keep up with all of the community events, and you can see what's going on at tiny.cc/ACA Meetup. We've got Philosophy Under the Stars game nights and many, many more things that are taking place there. You can join our weekly watch parties at the Free Thought Library on Sundays for live viewings of Talk Heathen and the Atheist Experience every Sunday. The doors are open up at noon, and it's a great place for building community. And while we're still getting our call screened in there, they dropped. I do want to send a very big thank you to the crew out there on the back end that's putting this together. Thank you guys so much for doing that. Big crew cam there. Thank you guys so much. Y'all are awesome for making everything run smoothly here on the Atheist Experience. Y'all are great. And yeah, we're still waiting on calls to get in here. We did have somebody that was calling in to complain about pronouns, so I'm so sorry we're not going to be able to address that one. But now, Jim, what would you say is your biggest complaint about, Christianity, maybe Christianity's effects on our current modern, society or culture? Like what kind of things do you notice people doing or people putting out there that seems to be a detriment?
Well, I think the biggest detriment is that we have more churches, active churches, than we do schools. I mean, I think that tells us where people's priorities are. Then we have a movement towards taking the funding for charter schools and trying to move that to religious schools as well. I think that's the biggest problem that we have, is that secular folk have not fought this hard enough that we can now see, especially with charter schools, that money trying to go to private religious schools. Now, I have a problem with charter schools in general. I was a supporter, but in the last 10 or 15 years or so, I have become less and less supportive until a point where I'm completely against it. I think it's a really bad idea for our schools. But I think that's the biggest thing, right? We can see what the priorities are for this country by what they put money towards. And we put more money into building churches than we do building schools. And we're trying to put more money into building church schools rather than good secular schools that will teach everybody no matter what. And I think that's a problem.
Yeah, no, I totally agree about that, because you've got so many efforts going on right now to create voucher programs so that we can actually use government money to send kids to private religious schools. And I just don't think that should be, a use of money in that kind of way. I think that voucher programs, they really do only seek to support some of the richest individuals out there that can actually afford, beyond the whole voucher situation, afford to send their kids to private schools. The voucher programs end up only benefiting, those people that don't actually need the vouchers. And so that's a really big problem there. And of course, you know, they're trying to force a lot of religion into school nowadays. There's several different efforts. Yeah, Oklahoma, I believe, in Texas. They're trying to push the 10 Commandments into schools, and you know, the 10 Commandments are really kind of bullshit in my opinion. Just trying to get people you know, angry in the comments in both locations here.
Right. I'm trying to get them to call in.
Right. Yeah. The 10 Commandments being utter bullshit. We can run through those because, like, the 10 Commandments, you know, the first 3 are just God stroking his own ego. I mean,
right.
to be honest.
Which version are we going to read? Are we going to read the most common, where it's "Thou shalt not lie," rather than "Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor," which are not the same thing? Or "Thou shalt not kill" versus "Thou shalt not commit murder," which again are not the same thing, right? I mean, so which interpretation are we going with of the original Hebrew?
You know, that's a good question. And, you know, to be quite honest, I feel like most Christians, at least the ones that are looking to push the 10 Commandments into the schools, are probably going to be using some kind of bullshit like KJV. So they're not even going to be, you know, using anything scholarly. They just want to force kids to believe in God. It seems that seems to be the case.
I still don't understand why people think the KJV is worth toilet paper. I mean, worth being toilet paper. It's so bad in its translation. It's so obvious that it's trying to harmonize things that can't be harmonized for the simple purpose. You know, like everywhere in the KJV where you read the word servant, it should really say slave, because these people were not paid like we would expect a servant to be. And that's obviously because owning slaves, even in King James's time, was considered a bad idea and immoral. And you can't have the Bible supporting immoral things. And yet, it clearly supports slavery. And if somebody wants to come on and debate that, I think John and I'd be more than happy to quote the Bible at you until you realize that you're wrong. It does support slavery.
Right. No.
It's amazing.
Go ahead.
I was saying, it's amazing to me how many people will quote all the verses except the ones about chattel slavery. They know those, but they don't. They're completely surprised when you start quoting all the verses about chattel slavery.
well, and if you read that one to them, they're going to be like, "I know exactly what you're going to say right here," and no, this was not owning them as property. But the funny thing is that when you actually read it, it literally says you may own them as property, and it's amazing to me how they'll literally try to convince you that words do not mean words. You know?
Yeah, and you can beat them as long as they don't die within 3 days, for they are and the most accurate translation is money.
Right.
Not even property, it's money.
Honestly, another area where the slave servant thing is really muddies the waters is when you read the Annunciation of the Lord, I believe is what it's called. It's where Mary is voluntold to be impregnated, because at the very end there, I get a lot of people that say, "Oh, well, Mary agreed to it. She gave her consent." But like if you literally read the Koine Greek there, it uses the word dule. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but it's dule, and dule literally means female slave.
Yes.
So like the translators literally just transform it into servant to make it more palatable, and it's kind of crazy how they do that.
Yeah, and she is never asked whether she wants to do it. She's told. And I dare any Christian to come on and give us the Bible quote where there is a question mark at the end of the quote indicating a question. Because we were talking earlier about Dean Meadows. Dean Meadows says, "Well, no, here's the quote." I'm like, "There's no question here, dude. Where's the question?"
Right. Exactly.
And it's like, there's no question here, right? She just simply says, "Well, I'm your slave, so you do whatever you want to me. You can beat me as long as I don't die within 3 days." Right. And, that brings up the whole "is God really moral" thing. which, is another thing that Christians don't like getting beat up on. But we don't even have to agree on what the definition of moral is. We just ask you very, very simple questions like, do you think it's moral for there to be rules and tests for women to be virgins, but not men? I can't find a single piece of evidence that there is a test for virginity in men. None, anywhere, right? And so that brings up a really important question. Why not? Is that moral? Do you think that's okay? Or are you going to say, well, separate but equal? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
and I mean, you get so many people on especially on TikTok, I've noticed, that will go to great lengths to run cover for God's rapey attitude here, and they'll come up with any kind of explanation for why it was okay, including just simply saying that words don't mean words,
Right.
And I think it's really ridiculous that they go to that to those lengths.
Right. And this passage is the one where it says that if a man marries a woman, has sex with her, and decides he doesn't like her, and claims she's not a virgin, I mean, this is really specific conditions here, then the parents are to bring the sheets as proof that she was, in fact, a virgin. Now, we can start talking again about, is this moral? Because only about half of women bleed the first time they have sex. So where is the moral here? Where are the morals? Is that moral? Is it okay to convict somebody of a crime based on a physical characteristic that only happens to half of the population? Is that okay? And it's like, well, I don't think it is. I mean, how does God not know that only happens to half of all women? Why does, without even talking about the virginity issue? And then the question becomes, well, if you don't believe that separate but equal is okay, then how does a woman go, I didn't like having sex with him, so he wasn't a virgin, therefore I want a divorce? How do we prove that? How does that same thing work in reverse? And it doesn't,
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I mean, the entire Bible in general is very, misogynistic and anti-woman, and it amazes me how people just don't see that. And I think that instances like you just brought up are, incredibly important to bring up to believers out there, because they regularly don't understand, they don't understand like how bad the religion is. And that's why I don't know about you, but Jim, but I like running with the whole idea that Christianity does more harm than good. And like the amount of misogyny, like systemic misogyny that it's created and has facilitated, I think that definitely more than suffices for it. But I'm kind of curious, what's your take on that particular statement, like Christianity doing more harm than good?
Well, I mean, we can just look at how often Christianity has had to resort to violence. I mean, I don't think we can say that Christianity has spread because of the quality of their arguments. Clearly, we don't buy any of the arguments. They all are flawed. None of them address the problem of evil or any of its premises. And I think if you're going to claim that there is some sort of omnipotent, omniscient, omnibenevolent God out there, that you need to deal with the problem of evil. And I think that's why, I think the problem of evil is why you don't see that triumvirate God show up in the first century. He's what, a second, third century invention? And I don't, so, you know, I just, if you're not dealing with that, if you're not, shoot, I forgot the question. I'm sorry. I got off on a tangent.
Oh, no, you're fine. Just your general sentiment on whether Christianity does more harm than good.
Yeah, and the quality of the violence. From the very beginning, there are, you know, when they first got a hold of the first Roman emperor, They started working on making it punishable by death to believe in any god but theirs. And you have those kinds of punishments happening. You have, the Crusades, the conquistadors, and even up into the 1800s, you have Native American children being ripped from their families, taken to religious schools, where, every single one of those schools that I'm aware of that we have some sort of mass grave or grave of those children who died. So I think you can just look at that history and go, this is stuff that's still happening today. The Catholic Church is still playing, hide the priest when the priest is playing hide the salami with kids. And it's not, I just don't see any benefit at all. We currently, I think we can trace a lot of our current geopolitical, one way or the other, to not just Christian religion, but religion in general. And that's a problem. I mean, you have the Israelis who believe that their country was given to them by God. And really it was given to them by the United Nations. So yeah, I think there are problems. When you start saying, I am holier than you, and you start creating these divisions based on what people believe, and now we have 3,000 different Christian denominations, or 1,000, or however many we actually have, that begins to be problematic, I think.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It is very problematic. We do have somebody that has managed to get through our call screeners over there on Call-In Studio. You ready to take a call?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, it's going to be the best of topics, totally on topic for the atheist community of Austin, and that's going to be Daniel from Mexico City over there, wanting to complain about pronouns. What's up there, Daniel? How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing fine. Just to be clear, I don't have anything against different genders or anyone assigning their own gender. Just to be clear, I don't believe everyone has the right to assign their own gender, and I don't have a problem with anyone. I just want to make that clear, right? My question is, why is the default? Let's say, for example, if I watch any other show, right? Let's say I'm turning on something on the TV or any other YouTube channel. It is pretty common to believe the person presenting the show is the gender that we think of, right? Let's say, for example, for a man, and I would just use men and female as the generic one, and man and woman as the gender type, if that's not a problem, right? If I see a man presenting the show, I usually believe he's a man, and he assigns himself as he, him. If it's a woman, basically the same. Or if it's female, it is basically the same. And basically, I'm asking the question because I believe this generates more friction with the general public, right? Because there are extremes, just like there are extreme ends on religion. I believe that there are extremes on gender, extremes, so basically anything. And I believe showing the level, this generates more friction within the general public than not showing it. By default, if anyone asks for it, I think that it is an option. I don't have a problem with that, but by default, I think that generates more friction.
So have you ever walked down the street and used the wrong gender version? Because I know Spanish is very heavily gender specific. Have you ever used the wrong gender on somebody by accident, just on the street?
Not really. Yeah, not really.
Oh, really?
But
I mean, it's
I don't.
But it happens, right? Because guys sometimes have long hair. They're not they're not what you expect, and so you use the wrong gender, or vice versa. We just have to do it on screen to prevent that.
Right. And I mean, how do you know how somebody identifies without asking them, or without them, telling you how to address them? It seems rather pretentious of you to be well, I know how they identify because I can just visually identify them in whatever way I want to identify them. That kind of seems pretentious to me, does it not?
Well, it is a little bit, to be honest. I don't want to just say, it's not it has nothing to do with that. But I think that everyone will agree, 99, I don't want to say 99 because it is not I'm not that sure about that number, but let's say like 90% plus of the people that we meet on a general basis will be the gender that we think they are. Like I'm not trying to say like.
Do you think that you should make that assumption though? Do you think that that's a reasonable assumption that you should be making for everybody? Because what it sounds like to me is that you're saying is that, well, unless I am told otherwise, I should automatically identify people with however I perceive them to identify. And why is it not just more polite and better in general to just ask people how they identify? And with us presenting how people identify on screen, we're just making sure that people know how to address people so that we can have a nice, respectful conversation. The conversation only gets combative when people refuse to identify, like, you know, to comply with our identification rules. It's only at that point where, you know, we start to get a bit, you know, I guess combative in our conversation, because people don't want to do that. And it really kind of perplexes me as to why people wouldn't want to do that.
No, the thing is, I agree, but there are 2 points in that argument that you just made. One, yeah, I think that, as I mentioned, everyone, like, or almost everyone, you will be able to see or assume. I don't want to like use the wrong word there, because I don't want to sound that bad, to be honest. But let's say, for example, if you see someone on TV, or if you see someone on the street, 95, 96% of the time you will be correct on why on their gender. Just generalizing, right? Obviously, you can make mistakes, but I think that, for example, if you're presenting a show and you are the gender that 95% of the people seeing you will assume you are, I don't think that there is a problem with just skipping that, right? And obviously,
I don't think. Why not use gender-neutral pronouns? Why not just use gender-neutral language until you find out?
No, I don't have a problem.
Why not do that as the default?
No, I don't. The thing is, and maybe that's just my personal experience and my experience living in Mexico. I know that there are different like cultures in the world and different cities, and even like the culture can vary between different cities. But for example, in Mexico, it is somewhat offensive, just to say the least, if you refer to someone as gender neutral when you are meeting them, right? Because it is not like the people would get offensive or they would try to fight you. But usually, if you are talking to a man, like it is at least in the Mexican culture, it is respectful for them to just call them, okay, good day, sir, or nice to meet you, sir, something like that, right? And I don't know if I'm not saying that's the correct default,
yeah,
right? Because I mentioned there are different cultures.
Culture's got to change. Yeah, it's not just the Mexican culture that needs to change. You know, in the U.S., we have the same thing. It's just that English has less gender-specific nouns and verbs, right? But it's still, and that the culture's got to change too. It's not right to make assumptions about people based on bare facts like what people are wearing. Because if you go back, 100 years, you'll find men and women wearing very, very different clothes today, or even 200 years, right? Because you go back to, in the U.S., we go back to colonial times, and we can see that men were wearing makeup, men were wearing wigs, men were wearing heels, men were wearing corsets, not women. And after the late 1700s, early 1800s, it doesn't take. Yeah, it happens after that. So making assumptions based on what people are wearing doesn't seem like a good way to address people. Much better to do it and have and show real respect for them by being gender neutral until you find out what they wish to be called.
I think that I will agree with that if I were living in the US, right? But for example, in Mexico, as even you mentioned, the language does not work that way.
Daniel, I'm wondering, do you recognize that us normalizing the, requiring pronouns, having pronouns next to our name so that people can properly identify us, do you recognize that as as us actively trying to support like the trans community and actively support not just automatically assuming gender?
I support the first one. I believe like asking everyone, please let me just like completely agree. I believe that the first one is a good one. It's a good policy. If someone calls and you need to basically talk to them in the show, asking them what gender they are, what the gender they want to use, or what pronouns they want to use. I think that's a good thing, right? Because again, someone with a different gender will call to the show, and you have no other cue or no other clues to basically try to assign a gender, right? I think that's a good thing. Right.
Okay, so you're all. Would I be accurate? Would I be accurate in assuming that the only thing that you're complaining about right now is the fact that Jim and I, as well as other hosts, put our pronouns on the screen? Is that what you're complaining about?
It is not a complaint. Yes. As I mentioned, it is the format of the show. I just wondering why choose that if that generates a lot of like friction. For example, I'm asking that because I have recommended the show to multiple people, and a lot of them have asked me, okay, why do they have the gender if like 99% of the, sorry, I keep using 99. Let me change that one. If the majority of the hosts like have the gender that I think they have, let's say it that way, right? They use different wording and maybe a little bit more offensive. But I think that having that by default generates a little bit more friction. I don't think it is a bad thing. No. For me, it is neutral, right?
No,
but I think it only creates for the general people.
Yeah, Daniel, it only creates friction with people who are transphobes.
I don't think so. To be honest, I have family members who are not transphobe.
Hey, Daniel, which of us has been doing this show for over 10 years with his pronouns next to his name and does other shows? And which of us on here hosts their own show with their pronouns and would know more about the friction that gets generated than you?
I think that I'm the first one that I'm basically mentioning it, because I don't think that I'm the only one that thinks about it.
Oh, no, you're not. Well, go ahead, John. Sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, I even on TikTok, I ask people their pronouns because sometimes they just crash out immediately when I ask them for their pronouns, because they think that it's some kind of weird agenda that they want to attribute to trans people or something like that. And it's because they're transphobic. It's because they want to push, their own heteronormative, or not necessarily heteronormative, but transphobic sort of standards for everybody. They just want to be able to assume everybody is the gender that they perceive them as. They also want to have the ability to call trans people their sex assigned at birth. So like that's what they want to do with it.
I think that's dumb.
Huh?
No, and to be honest, I think that's dumb. As I mentioned, it is dumb to like trying to normalize. Let's say, for example, if someone has a different gender,
of course you think it's dumb. You're a bigot. You're a bigot. That's why you think
no.
It's dumb.
Sorry, no. Maybe you misunderstood me. I think that it's dumb for people to force that one on other people. I think that everyone has, as I mentioned, I think that everyone has the right to assign their own gender, right? And you should be able to speak to other people, and the other people should be able to use that gender when they are speaking to you and we are referring to you. I hope that's clear, right? What I mentioned is some people, like the general public, is not really talking about this in general, right? The gender, to be honest, different gender really only comes in the play in a conversation when someone has a different gender, right? Usually we don't really think, okay, I need to present myself as a he, him, at least not in the general, or at least not in my culture. As I mentioned, I'm calling, and my opinions are reflected on my culture, right? Or my culture is reflected on my opinions.
Right. So Daniel, I just want to say, right, like we're based in the United States. In the United States, the trans community is under fire right now. They're being targeted specifically. There's many bills that are going through various levels of government that are specifically targeting trans people. So like asking people for their pronouns and making sure that we're identifying people correctly and normalizing that kind of process, that kind of workflow in normal conversation is an important thing, because what it says to the trans community is that we see you, we hear you, and we want you to be accepted in our in society in general, not our society, but in society in general. So that's what we're trying to promote with this. We're trying to normalize it. We're trying to get people used to not necessarily identifying or not necessarily assuming somebody's gender. So that's the reason why we're doing it. And if it's a problem for your particular culture, maybe that's a sign that your culture needs to change instead of forcing trans people to change, to meet the status quo of your culture.
Oh, no, and by this I don't mean that trans people or that. I will agree that Mexican culture needs to change, to be honest. There are more problems, even harsher problems in Mexico right now that not even related to the trans community. And I will agree that maybe maybe asking or being proactive on this, maybe it is a good thing, at least in the Jewish culture. Basically the thing is I have recommended this show to people in Mexico, right? And some people in the US, but not that much because I live in Mexico. So it will be hard for me to recommend the shows to people there. So that's what the question really is. Nothing, as I mentioned, is nothing against the trans community, and not even like the trans community. There are other communities that use different genders. Let's say, for example, maybe this sounds weird, but I have a friend that's a furry, and he uses like other pronouns. And I agree with him in 99% of the issues, right? Like we believe in global warming, we believe in we're about atheists, we will have like a lot of similar beliefs. It's just like he's like part of that culture. And when I talk to him, I just his gender. Sometimes I mispronounce that. And not even his gender is something. It's another thing. Sorry, I will mispronounce it in English if I try to do so, right? Because I think that's Mexican lingo. But yeah, I don't have a problem with that. I just was wondering why was that the default in the show. And yeah, I think that maybe
because we recognize we need to be part of the problem or part of the solution to the culture needing to change. And we choose to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. Those are your choices. Be part of the problem or part of the solution, unless you're talking about chemistry, in which your case you're either part of the solution or part of the precipitate.
I think that there is an option for being neutral, and I don't think that there is like anything wrong with being neutral, and that was my point. But yeah, I think that being part of the solution is a good default.
That's our default, is to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. Because to choose not to decide is still to make a choice, right? Choosing the lesser of two evils is still choosing evil.
Yeah, but my point is like maybe at least in some cases, let's say for example, again to the question, not showing the gender by default. Yeah, I don't think that is part of the problem. It's not like basically every.
No, it's part of the solution to the problem.
Like live transmission will be.
Putting our pronouns everywhere, and my pronouns are everywhere on every piece of social media I have, whether I'm at work or out in public. My pronouns are out there because I want to be part of the solution, not the problem. You can either choose that or not.
No,
it's up to you.
I understand. I understand. Like what I was asking, basically the question was, or my point was, I don't see anything wrong in having that by the default, right? There are some places where it is the policy that is mandatory, and I think that that's a little bit risky because you start like making friction, right? And that's what I meant at the start of the show. Like I think that maybe by that being mandatory or by that being default, I think that it creates some friction with people that are not really thinking about it, and if they meet like someone that is trans or someone that has a different gender, we don't refuse to call them like that because I think that the only people, and this is my personal opinion, I will not try to generalize it, but I think that people who like denies or refuses to refer to someone else with the gender they prefer are just like dicks, to be honest. I'm sorry for the word, but they are either dicks or bigots or something like that. I don't think like the general people. Like yes. If you ask like
so if you refuse to call somebody by their correct name because they have changed their name, simply because they have changed their name to a gender, a name that is associated with the gender you don't think they are, and you refuse to use that name or those pronouns, you are a bigot by definition.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. But I don't think that the majority of the people are bigots. Maybe I'm wrong.
Oh yeah.
So this is why I was wondering why.
Because the majority of people don't have a problem with at least in the United States, don't have a problem with using gender neutral. Majority of people in the United States tend to not want to be bigots, and they recognize bigotry when they see it. Now, the Mexican culture may be different. Maybe have some problems, but there are only two solutions: be part of the problem or part of the. Or there are only two choices: you be part of the problem or part of the solution. That's it.
Yeah, I just to
And I
jump in
think
here
that's
real
what I
quick.
disagree a little bit.
Well, just to jump in here real quick, I know that Mexico has a pretty predominant like Catholic community like in Mexico. I don't know if you are Catholic or if you know Catholic persons, but generally Catholic people are, you know, transphobic. I mean, they don't want to recognize trans people in the community. They don't want to recognize the fact that gender is more of a social construct than anything else. They don't want to recognize it when people transition. At least is what our experience is here in the States. Do you have a different experience there, David? Daniel? Sorry, Daniel.
Oh, it is Daniel. No, don't worry. The thing is, Mexican culture is changing a lot in the last, let's say, 20 years. Mexico was really Catholic, like extremely Catholic, and just by basically the result of the Mexican colonization and the forced conversions in Mexico, right? But in the last 20 years, you will be hard pressed to find someone young. By young, I mean 40 less years old that still goes to church like every week and something like that, right? So it is changing a lot. You can even see like dark shows. You can start seeing things like that. So it is not as strict as it was. You can still see like old people like with those views. At least in my experience, right? Maybe you can see like some extreme people or some people that was basically taking to church like every weekend and things like that. But it is less common nowadays. To be honest, it is more free, more open. In fact, I think that we have like a resurgence on the feminist movement lately, and same with the LGBTQ community. We have like LGBTQ parades in like our capital city and things like that. So it is not like that lately, but yeah, it was like that like maybe 20 to 30 years ago.
Okay. Like I said, I'm not.
Basically, that's my question. I don't think that. Sorry, go ahead.
No, well, I was just gonna say, I don't live in Mexico, so I don't know what the culture is like there. So, but as far as like us presenting our pronouns, it's just we're trying, like Jim was saying, we're trying to be part of the solution by making sure that people have become accustomed to seeing pronouns in bio, pronouns next to our names, so that they can accurately get a sense of how we identify is what, is the effort that we're putting forth. And it's the effort that I put forth on, all of my social media platforms and everything that I do. And so that's what I'm definitely trying to do there.
Okay, and I think I can respect that one. I don't think that should be default just by the friction it creates, but I can respect the opinion.
Okay. All right. Well, is that all that you wanted to talk about today there, Daniel?
Yeah, basically, I have like some other things that I would like to maybe with you guys, but I think that I have taken enough time on the show. So thank you very much for taking the call.
All right. Thank you, Daniel. Appreciate you.
Yeah, same. Have a nice day. See ya. Bye.
Bye. Sorry, I'm trying this thing where I'm using my tablet over here, trying to be all fancy with multiple gadgets going, but sometimes it doesn't want to respond to my touch. But anyways, we don't have anybody else in queue on either TikTok or in Call-In Studio. If you would like to challenge us on this holy sacrificial week that we have such a problem with, definitely call in. The number is 512-991-9242. We would love to take your call. We would love to interact with you on how pointless Jesus' sacrifice was, because he did not, he just sacrificed a weekend and he could have just as easily changed his mind. So he literally just likes BDSM. It makes it seem like, but, anyways, we don't have, if you're over there on TikTok, by the way, if you can tippy tap on the screen there so that we can get the feed out to the rest of TikTok so we can bring some people in. Also, if you haven't shared it yet, take the time to like repost it, share it with a friend that maybe has an issue with atheists or mythicists. Like I was bringing up at the beginning, both Jim and I are mythicists in that respect. So definitely call in and we would love to interact with you. The number once again is 512-991-9242, or just hit that little request up icon over there on the Tickety Talk. Now, Jim, I'm wondering for you growing up, was Easter week or like Easter this time of year, was that like really big for you?
Oh, I was Catholic. So yeah, we did the whole Lent thing. Can't eat meat, only fish on Fridays. I went to Catholic school about half the years I was in school, K through 12. So, yeah, if you went to go, cafeteria, you were getting, non-meat dishes, et cetera. The whole giving something up for Lent was a big thing on the first day of Lenten class. And when we weren't going to a parochial school, we were in CCD classes. So those are the, evening classes for Catholics, basically, for Catholic children.
Okay.
I forget what CCD even stands for anymore, but it's, the Sunday school for Catholics is on a weekday. Because we don't really do Sunday school. The Mass thing's a little bit different, but so yeah, it was always a big deal. And then, of course, sunrise service on Easter morning, was always something that my family tried to make. We were not twice a year Catholics. We were every single Sunday. Sunday. Yeah.
Man. Yeah, I grew up Catholic too, but I was a pretty lazy Catholic, to be quite honest. Like, I was just a Catholic because my parents told me to go to Catholic church and everything like that. So like, I really wasn't like all into like the whole theology of it. I went to private Catholic school. And so like every Easter, right about the time of Easter, we would have like stations of the cross, right?
Yes.
That we'd have to go through and memorize. And that was kind of crazy to have to go through that, because it was, growing up, now looking back at it now, like it really is so crazy, because with Catholics, I don't know if many people know this distinction out there, but Catholics, they don't just have the cross, like they go crucifix, right? Like they totally go all in with the crucifix. They have the bloody Jesus up there and everything like that. And when they make kids do the stations of the cross, like that, you literally have to walk through each station, and like it's like, oh, and Jesus got beat the shit out of here, and he dropped to his knees, and he dropped to his knees 3 times, and you have to do that like every 3 times is where Jesus like dropped to his knees and everything like that. It's just it's crazy.
Yeah, it is. The rituals are, and the rituals are kind of interesting too, I think, from the perspective of you go to another Catholic church in a country whose language you don't speak, and you can still participate in the Mass. You're just reading the English version, not in my case, we were reading the Korean. We're at a Korean Catholic church, and of course, the entire service is in Korean, but we're following along because we know which prayers they're using for that day for the entire service. And so we can follow along and read the passages that are being read. The Eucharistic prayers, we know which ones they're going to be using for that particular day in most cases. And so you can read along with the whole thing. And I've seen very senile old people participating fully in the service simply because it's so ingrained in them. I think you've heard the joke. Priest gets up to the very beginning and realizes that there's something wrong with the microphone. And he says, just loud enough to be heard, but not understood. There's something wrong with this microphone. And the congregation responds, and also with you. Which is only really funny if you're Catholic, because you know what their response is to.
I have this tick, though, that, because I like Star Wars, and whenever it's like, may the Force be with you, I always want to go, and also with you. Yeah, those calls and responses get ingrained in you, and there's a lot of them. The one thing that I liked about Catholic Mass though was that as a kid, like I had a you know, a very analytical brain, and so like I was able, like after a few of the masses, I was able to figure out the routine, right?
Right.
And so I knew the second time we went to our knees and prayed, we were almost out of church, and so like I would just be, it would be like nails on a chalkboard until we got to that second time we knelt down, and then once we did that, I'm like home stretch. Let's get the fuck out of here.
And whatever you do, Father, don't take too long after communion. We're done. Time to go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was an altar boy too, and I was primarily an altar boy because it was less boring than sitting in the pew.
Oh yeah.
Because you had to get up and do stuff, but you also had to be, you know, a lot less obnoxious up top there, where everyone could see you.
So just we do have somebody in the queue over here on a call in. We don't have anybody over there on TikTok. If you are on TikTok and you disagree with the atheist position, or you disagree with secular humanism, or if you think that church needs to be deeply integrated into the state, then do request up. We would love to talk to you. But right now we are going to get to Anne over there on Call-In Studio. Welcome up, Anne. How are you doing?
I'm fine. How are you guys today?
Doing pretty good.
Yep.
So,
Great.
Anne, what
I did
would you
call
like
in
to talk about? Oh.
I'm sorry?
Oh, I was just asking what you were wanting to talk about today.
Well, I did call in on one topic regarding the last call, but you guys were talking so much about Catholicism, and I felt like it was the story of my life. I grew up in a very Catholic bubble growing up. I mean, large family. I had 9 siblings. We were all named after saints.
Right.
I don't even know what saints are about anyway, or where they come from, or how they came to be. Because supposedly, you know, my name Anne is supposed to be after Saint Anne, but I don't know that she even existed. And this is only something I've only been recently thinking about, you know, from watching these shows. And I think, who are these saints? Where'd they come from? Were they real?
Those are really good questions. To make it even weirder, it's only the Roman Catholic Church that does it. The Eastern Orthodox, Russian Orthodox, and the Coptics don't do it. It's only the Roman Catholics that have the whole saint thing, and the whole intercession of saints, where you pray to a saint to go talk to God, about something is kind of weird too. But yeah, I don't know. I should really look into that, because that might be an interesting story to figure out why the Catholic Church puts emphasis on these saint folks.
Yeah, I know that they just recently inducted in the first Gen Z saint, and honestly, the saints. Whenever somebody gets sainted or whatnot, it seems really weird, because like they have to verify miracles that happen after their deaths, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's really odd to me how they can verify that, because it's always like, oh, well, I had a sliver of his shirt and we were like, hey, please heal this person, and then the person got healed. It's like, no, they just took Tylenol and they're fine now. But I mean, that's not a miracle. That's just something that we understand. You just attach it to this object and everything. It's actually quite weird, like the whole saint part. But that's also why there are some people out there that say that Catholics aren't Christian, because of they worship Mary, or they pray to Mary, but they also pray to the other saints.
That sounds like my mom. You know, if you're having a problem, she'll tell you to pray to this saint or that saint, whichever one is the patron saint of whatever. Like, yep. Mom, I asked her one time, Mom, do you ever pray directly to God? Like, yeah, sometimes. Okay. I don't understand why these middlemen are in there.
Yeah, it confuses a lot of people.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Now, why do you?
So
I mean, I don't.
go ahead, Anne. Sorry.
Well, none of them are in the Bible, right?
No, they're all people
Well,
who lived after the Bible and lived supposedly exemplary lives of some kind, and therefore might have an in with God that normal people don't have.
yeah, and they can do like they can do things. They can heal people, they can help people, they protect people, and it's like you've got to do. I think it's like three. They got to do 3 miracles after they die in order for you to be sainted, and it's got to be verified by the Pope guy. In order for you to actually be considered a saint.
Okay.
I mean, honestly, it's all magical musical chairs at this point, as far as like the Catholic religion goes. Like it literally is just. I feel like with the Catholic Church, it's just a bunch of make it up as you go, because like they've changed on so many different positions. It's just kind of crazy.
Yeah. How long did it take them to finally agree that the Earth revolves around the sun?
Depends on who you ask, because there are people who say that the church didn't lock up Galileo because he said that the sun was the center of the solar system, but because he said God wasn't part of it. And that kind of rings true, because there were some people before Galileo who kind of said the same thing, who were also sun centrists, but I don't think they did the work that Galileo did. But I think it depends on who you ask and how much the church is trying to cover up their original position. You also have to remember the church is huge, right? So it also probably depends on which priest you asked.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And if you're going to ask the Pope, there was a period of time when there were 7 popes in France alone. Or 8 popes. I forget how many. There was more than one, and they were fighting over which one is the real one.
I don't know if y'all want to hear this kind of disgusting fact that I know, because I went to Rome and my wife looked up facts about Rome. But there's actually at Trevi Fountain over there in Rome. There's actually a building that's like an old bank or something like that. But they've got like the hearts of 7 popes stored in there or something. I could look it up real quick. But yeah, they apparently have preserved the hearts of a bunch of popes. And in I guess mason jars or something. I don't know what they use over there in Rome, but yeah, I could probably find that out real quick. But it's just it's a little crazy what they hold sentimental value with.
And they're probably not even the real hearts either. The church is fairly notorious for promoting relics that aren't really relics for various and assorted reasons, mostly to do with money and power.
Right. Also,
oh, go ahead. Sorry, I keep interrupting you.
No, I was going to say, well, about thinking about the hearts, that made me think about the communion.
Mm-hmm.
You eat bread, and that's supposed to be Jesus's body, and get a little wine, and that's supposed to be drinking his blood. Like, I don't know.
And that is the literal body of Christ and literal blood of Christ, by the way, as in there should be a DNA. The bread should go from bread DNA to human DNA. Yeah.
So I got an update. I got an update about that. So it's actually a church. There's a church across from Trevi Fountain, and the church is called Sante Vincenzo e Anastasio Trevi. And the best supported count is actually 22 Pope hearts that are preserved there, from Sixtus V to Leo the 13th. Fun fact for this Sunday. Fun fact Sunday.
Yeah, and how many of them are the real heart?
That is
That's
pretty
the question.
fun fact. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is a fun fact. Wow.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I know that you called in to talk about the pronouns issue. Did you want to say your piece on the pronoun stuff too?
Yeah, I just, I listen to quite a few of these shows, and I'm not young. I'm 58, so I know I have more years behind me than ahead of me. But I know that, while I'm still here, you've got to keep up with the changes, and I have no problem with that. And I'm not like doing it because I have to. I'm doing it because I really don't have a problem with that. But I seem to have a problem when people complain about having to use pronouns, having to give pronouns. What is the big deal? Why? I mean, I have seen some epic arguments on some of these shows over callers that just will not give pronouns.
Yeah, I think it's because Jesus taught to be intolerant and not to and to judge people whenever possible, and to be as judgmental as possible. And that the Christians just following. Oh wait, no, it's because they don't read the freaking Bible. Now, people will say Catholics don't read the Bible, but I will say, if you go to Mass every day, every 3 years, you're read the entire Bible, bit by bit, but you'll have read the entire Bible. So that's not entirely true. They don't read it, it's read to them. But because they don't read the Bible themselves, and they think it has all the same prejudices they do, and then they hear some stupid apologetic preacher who says God didn't make Adam and Steve, completely ignoring the fact that Cain and Abel were brothers, and the only woman that existed was mom. Right? They forget these things, and they want to argue about it. And I'll go, well, no, the Bible says there were cities. Okay, but you can't have it both ways, right? And so you can't have they're the first family in cities. Well, the Bible didn't cover all the people that Adam and Eve had to make the cities. And it's like, so Eve was a clown car? I don't get that either. So, literally, I think that's what it is. They don't read their freaking Bible, and they don't understand it. And so they listen to preachers who are supposed to know it and go from there. And you have preachers who are bigots and use the Bible to excuse their bigotry.
Yeah. The Bible seems like it can be used for all kinds of things.
Mm-hmm. Like any type of prose, and I don't consider scientific papers to be prose. It's a whole different genre of writing. But prose can always be interpreted in multiple ways. That's part of the problem with teaching by parables. It works in a limited way, but you always have to make sure you've got a really solid explanation of what you mean by the parable and how it is applying to whatever it is you're talking about. And we don't always get that. So, it just doesn't make any sense to accept a collection of 66 stories or 68 or however many you want to call it as literal fact when it's open to interpretation.
Well, I think sometimes the Constitution is that way too.
Yeah. And the Constitution is much more narrowly written. Yeah. The Constitution is written by people who understand, that was written by people who at least had an understanding that they needed to write precisely. And so you're taking actions and trying to figure out how those actions fit under a set of laws. The law does try to be precise, and sometimes in that precision, it stops being about what we want it to be.
Yeah, I know. I just think sometimes people twist the Constitution or something.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Or try to.
Yeah. I mean, there are people who will tell you that the passages in the Bible about treating the foreigners among you with respect and decency were about legal foreigners. And it's like, so where was this country's borders, and how do they protect those borders, and how do they how did you know you were coming in? How did you know they were here illegally? Because at that time, all paperwork could be faked, right? You go look at some of the ways that traders tried to keep track of what they were selling and how much they were selling it for across a trade route. There's some pretty sophisticated ways to do it. They only did that because of forgery and crime. And how do you know if somebody is actually a citizen of your country if you don't? We have a hard time with that. Our modern IDs get forged all the time. How are you doing that when you have clay tablets and papyrus?
Yeah. Yeah, that was much easier.
Much easier today than it was back then. So, you have people interpreting all kinds of things in terms of what they know today, and you can't do that. So you got to look at what they knew at the time.
Okay. All right.
So, Anne, before we let you go, I was going to ask you, because I asked Jim this a second ago, and I like hearing these kinds of things being answered by fellow atheists, but how integral was the Easter week or the Easter celebrations and everything like that? How integral was that for you growing up?
Oh, yeah. My mom was all about that. And there was the 7 stations of the cross, although I can't remember how all that went. I was like half paying attention. I just wanted to grow up and not have to go to church anymore at that point in my life. But,
no, same here. Like I don't remember much of it either. I know that he gets whipped a lot, and then there's this one point where he does that whole Forrest Gump, wipes his face, and he comes away with the face on the rag kind of thing, and then he falls like 3 times. Yeah.
And you have what's his name take up the cross because he can't pick it up anymore.
Yeah.
That's right. I forgot all about that. It's been so long. Wow. That's such a long time. But I mean, we had to do the fish on Friday every Lent right. And everything. So.
Oh, another fun fact, and I heard this from my wife, but the reason why McDonald's starts up their whole fillet of fish thing or something is like right around Lent time, so that Catholics can actually get something from McDonald's.
Yep.
Yeah, I think a lot of the fast food places do that, because I do seem to see a lot of ads for fast food places around this time of year doing fish. But I think my mom had us have fish every Friday, not just during Lent.
Oh, yeah, some Catholics did. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, she was old school Catholic. So I think when she went to Mass, it was all in Latin. Yeah.
Yeah, pre Second Vatican. Okay.
Yeah.
that is really old school.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's kind of how I grew up Catholic. Really Catholic. I even remember, just real quick, we had a Methodist church like behind our house, behind our backyard, and then there was a wall in the parking lot for the church. And one time I asked my mom, I said, "Mom, why do we drive 1.5 miles up the road to go to that church when there's just one around the corner? All I have to do is walk around the corner to go there." And she goes, "Well, it's a Methodist church." And I'm like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah.
Yeah. That kind of freaked me out. Like, oh, okay. But at that point, I wasn't even aware there was other religions. I mean, I was in a very Catholic bubble.
Yeah.
Growing up, and Methodist is just another sect of Christianity.
Yep. Yeah, and they will fight. They will fight over which version is correct, and it just makes no sense. Come to blows over it, and go to war over it. You know, how many European wars were caused by that? The Irish problem was primarily, you know, which version of Christianity was true. We do that all the time. If God cared, he'd stop it.
Right.
And if he existed,
Yeah.
he would
Well,
stop. If he
I think
existed and he
yeah.
cared, he'd stop it. So,
Well, yeah, I think if there was a God, then he or she or they or it would have just said, and everyone would just know.
yeah, I mean, just like you know that people exist by you know, oh look, they're there.
Yeah.
I mean, you would think if you were a smart God, you know, an omniscient one, dare I say, you would think that, you know, just doing that would be better than, you know, causing all these wars and all this other stuff that, you know, has been a problem.
Yeah. or write the Bible in such a way that it is less interpretable.
Yeah.
You know, one story of Genesis,
Right. I mean,
one story of the flood, you know, things like that. Minor little things.
Well,
Actual
I mean,
evidence of the Exodus happened.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because if there's a God, he's either just letting all this happen or he's too incompetent to stop it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or, yeah. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, until then, I see no reason to believe there's one at all, you know, for any reason.
Same.
So,
Yeah. The Bible is ridiculous.
yeah, it is. Yeah. And I'm learning a lot more about it watching these shows. So,
Well, go find Godless Engineer's channel. He does a pretty good job, especially on the especially on the
channel. Yeah.
Oh, good.
Oh,
good.
awesome. Yeah, I mean, I know that I'm primarily just putting up like clips of like conversations and everything that I have, but you know, I definitely appreciate you doing that.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I do enjoy watching your videos.
Oh, thank you so much. You know, I bet that you're already subscribed to the Atheist Community of Austin here, but we've also got Talk Heathen over here as well, and Truth Wanted. So there's a lot of shows out there for you know, you to consume. And Truth Wanted's a fun show. I don't know if you do much on Friday nights, but it's a pretty fun show. It's kind of different.
And it does more than just Christian. Yeah, we do more than just does God exist. We also get into all the different supernatural claims and aliens and the whole 9 yards.
Okay, I'll have to check that one out. I'm very familiar with Talk Heathen, so
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
but I'm going to have to check Truth Wanted out. There's a lot of channels popping up, so
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
yeah. But this one
All
I
right,
found
Ann.
just like a year ago, and it was all old stuff. So.
All right, Ann. Well, it was great talking to you. I'm glad that we could, you know, kind of connect on the whole Catholic thing. I know that there's a lot of recovering Catholics out there, and do you have the same thing that Jim and I do? When it's like, if I were to say to you, "May the Force be with you," what's your automatic response?
And also with you.
There you go. That's how you know. That's how you know you're working with a real recovering Catholic. There.
Yep. And it is recovering. We're always recovering.
Oh, it took me a second, though. It took me a second. I think I buried it or something.
No.
Yeah.
And I dug it up. I'm so sorry about that. All right, Ann.
And
Well,
then
it was
lift
great
up your
talking.
hearts. We lift them up to the Lord. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it was great talking to you. And I hope that you'll call in the future if you have any other questions. And I hope you have a good rest of your day and a great Holy Week where we're going to sacrifice, you know, Jesus on Friday.
Yeah. We're Jesus' lost weekend. Yeah.
Yep.
So.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, Ann. Well, I'm going to drop you down right now, but I hope you have a great day. Okay.
All right. You too. Bye.
All right. Bye. There There we go. All right. Well, I think that's kind of a wrap for our show here. And I don't think that did we get any super chats today? I don't see any super chats.
No super
I don't think
chats.
no super chats today.
Yeah, they could have made us say almost anything as long as it's not against our policy. We'd be willing to say it. So nobody wanted us to say something silly.
I know. I usually, we get people wanting us to say some silly shit, but we didn't get that today. But I do want to bring up our backup host, Kelly. Hey there, Kelly. How you doing? Oh, Kelly is muted.
Yep, I was. I haven't done that in a long time, too. But just as you were introducing me to come up, we got a super chat.
Oh, I saw that. May the force be with you, Anne. I think is what it said, right?
Yeah, that was awesome. That was awesome. So, I thought, actually, I loved Anne's call. I thought it was really refreshing and just great. I really enjoyed it. You were mentioning all the wars in Europe, and I had a list just off the top of my head because you know me, I love history and trivia. 30 Years' War, French Wars of Religion, the Northern Crusades, and everybody seems to forget about those. The Teutonic Knights conquering Estonia, Lithuania, and Latvia, and the Reconquista. I mean, there's hundreds of thousands of people, probably millions of people that died in just 4 wars right there. So,
yeah,
all caused by Christianity. All caused by Christianity. And I didn't even mention the Crusades.
Right. Or the conquistadors.
Yeah, right. There you go. So, I mean...
Well, so...
Go ahead, John.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say, Kelly, something that I asked Jim earlier was, about my statement that Christianity does more harm than good. And I'm kind of curious where you fall on that question.
You know, it's really hard to tell because I know a bunch of old women that have led their lives being good Catholics or some other good Protestants, and they really, really believe in Jesus, and a lot of them are alone now, and their life revolves around that, and that's really all they have. And there was a book by one of my favorite authors, I'm not going to mention what it is, but they find the body of Christ in it, and they have to decide what to do with it, and they're going to show it to the world, and then they start thinking about all the old ladies and how they're just going to crush them, and they decide not to do it. So, I mean, it's kind of hard. I think it probably, throughout history, has probably caused way more harm, but it does do a little bit of good for some people. So, and as much as I hate to admit that, it is true, so...
Yeah, I totally understand that aspect of it, that, Christianity is good for some people out there. But I guess my position on it takes in the entire history of Christianity. Like what has Christianity set up for society? What has been its real effect? And, that's I guess that's kind of where I find myself analyzing that particular question. But I definitely value your input on that.
One of the things too, I was just thinking about, and we get a lot of calls on these shows about people wondering about how we can still have morals without God. So I think maybe Christianity is doing good for those people too, because they're not going out and killing and robbing and hurting people. So it might be doing more good than we actually realize. So
a case could be made that if the only reason you're not doing something most people would consider evil or immoral is because you fear punishment, you're probably not fundamentally a good person.
Yeah. I would say that. Now, I guess my reaction to that generally is just that there are better ways to actually, cope with those kinds of situations as opposed to just needing religion. I'm not saying that we should totally remove religion from society or Christianity, from society or anything, but I definitely think that there's healthier ways to manage that, like with, recoveringfromreligion.org, or any of those organizations out there that are really geared towards helping people. I think that it can really help people out there in a more meaningful way than just throwing some Jesus on them, right?
Yeah. But one thing also I need to do to both you guys is thank you so much for mentioning Truth Wanted. As the host and producer of the show, I have to thank you so much for mentioning that. And it is a great show. Of course, I have to say that.
Well, I mean, I love Truth Wanted's variety, and
Yeah.
and it's a nice break from just talking about how much God sucks all the time, and those kinds of arguments. So, I mean, it's definitely a nice shift in topic.
Thanks. That's about all I have. So thanks for bringing me up and let me, contribute a little bit. I appreciate it. You guys are awesome.
Yeah, no problem. We do have shows going on here at the Atheist ACA, the Atheist Community of Austin. Sorry, I totally stumbled on that for a second. We've got like Truth Wanted. We've also got Talk Heathen, and we'll be back at it next week. This coming Friday with Truth Wanted, and then next week with Talk Heathen and the Atheist Experience. So we really appreciate y'all tuning in today, spending your afternoon with us, and I guess we will see all you heathens later. Don't forget to stand up, use your voice, and all that kind of good shit, y'all.
What will it take for you to start opening your eyes, to start questioning the bullshit everyone around you buys? You think it's setting up your business, what goes on between my thighs? I wonder when we'll be rid of your lies.
Watch Talk Heathen live Sundays at 1 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTTH and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callth.